How's your ruckman, Michael? How's he
He's good.
come up this morning?
Yeah, he's pulled up really well. So he just had a little tweak. I've spoken to him already this morning, and he's fairly bullish. So we'll go with that.
So expect, if it was putting a percentage on it, Michael, close to 100, you think?
Oh, I'd say sits in that category. I mean, he's got to get through training and everything. I mean, we never say 100% until they line up, do we? But yeah, in terms of just where he sits, he's pretty comfortable. As Ken spoke after the game, we probably took a conservative approach. He was sore in an area, so got him off the ground and to ice up and get himself ready. I've spoken to him this morning and he's pretty positive, so I would imagine he'll be ready to go. And it'll be a good battle because he's up against a fairly handy ruckman with Gawn, and he obviously gives them first use, and Paddy's been in a lot of wonderful form throughout the whole year, so it'll be an important battle, those two, I would have thought.
So what will his program be? Is he able to start training straight away, or are you going to have to hold off on him for a while?
I would have thought tomorrow he'd be pretty limited, and if he needs, we'll give him every opportunity clearly, but I would have thought by Thursday you'll start to get on the park and have a bit of a kick around and see how he's going. Again, it's one of those ones with him. He's had such a huge workload this year anyway. Missing a training session at this time of the year is not such a bad thing for him.
How beneficial has it been as a midfield coach to have him working with you? I mean, the midfield's been great this season, but to get that armchair service must be pretty nice.
Yeah, he's been enormous. I think the big thing is that we've tried to really focus on that it's not just one person either. But we can't ignore the impact he's had at the same time. We've introduced a few different personnel through the midfield this year. Obviously, Chad's been one of them. Getting Polak back, with more consistency has been really important for us. Paddy's been an addition. Pal Pepper's come through there. So, we've had a fairly different look, if you want to call it that, in our midfield this year. And, not only you've got to have that, the ruckman being able to do what he's got to do, but the mids have to get to work around him, and the relationship has to be pretty strong, and he's formed that relationship with them over the first part of the year, and it seems to be getting stronger. It's really pleasing, and certainly for the mids, that they can get to work with some confidence that they've got some direction where the ball's going to go.
So, how many midfielders do you think you've got there? How deep do your rotations go?
Oh, well, we've got Robbie sitting in the forward line that hasn't spent a lot of time there and probably runs as deep as that. So, look, we're fairly confident that we've built a mid-group that we have 9-10 through there at different times. Not just talking about inside, you're also talking about who comes through wings and who can play in those positions. And, again, the flexibility, even just having Jacko being able to play, forward and come into the ruck, it gives Paddy a reprieve. He gets to go forward and maybe kick a goal. That's pretty important to be able to distribute the load. And as I said, Paddy's been enormous, and we've really loved having him. But it's also been a group that's had to come together and learn how to work with him and build that relationship from what's not just happening in the air, but also what's happening on the ground.
Other than distribute the load, what's it do for your ability to mix and match and seek mismatches or change what you want to do in the midfield during a game?
Oh, it certainly gives you plenty of options. Even just being able to give guys a rest more forward if they need to. Ollie hasn't spent a great deal of time there. He's probably been our mainstay with Ebo. So if probably anything, it's probably nearly been Brad that's been the number one guy that's had the most centre square bounce involvements at least. But I think also the continuity. You can't underestimate the continuity of having the same players out there working together and spending some time together.
Is Brad even underrated?
He gets lost in the mix at the minute. We've got a lot of other people we're talking about, but he's been one guy that sort of, I don't know whether flying under the radar has been is the right call, but he's certainly been sandwiched amongst a few. But he's just, he's just been really reliable the whole year. His performances haven't dipped. He's takes a tough matchup, pretty much weekly, and he gets the job done for us. And the level of trust that you have for players that can do that, really goes up. So, he's not only just got to be good at contests, but he's also got to be fantastic on transition. And I'd say he's probably up there with one of the best in the competition right now with his transition running.
Personally, you came from a super midfield. That's what's going to define Port Adelaide and how far it goes, the depth and ability of its midfield today?
I think that's the absolute key to any important team, let alone midfield group, is that you don't become dependent on one particular person. The actual strength is the group, and if one player's having an off day, then another one can step up, or another one can get the job done. So, for any midfield unit, or any certainly a group or team that works together, you need the collective. And I know we talk about that, and that can make that quite boring because we want to talk about the individual stars. But in the end, we feel our strength is in numbers, and that's where we'll continue to focus on.
Just felt like after that West Coast game, you've got a new steeliness or resilience from the outside. Do you feel that as well, or has it always been there?
I think it's developed, across the year. Even if you look at our style of play, we've constantly tried to look, at being able to ways to improve ourselves. And Ken talks about this quite a fair bit about the way we start. We hope that we'll be a better football team by the time we finish the year, just by, layering in things within our game plan, by spending more time together. And there's a lot of dependency on, even just the medical room to make that happen. And fortunately, we've had and touch wood, we've had a reasonably healthy list. Guys are challenging for spots. That can keep players on edge. And as a result of that, we've probably been able to spend a lot more time developing our style and building our relationships.
Speaking of that, Matty Broadbent, close this week, or be available?
Yeah, he should be available. So he's been one of those ones that's had a bit of a slow build-up, bit of a hiccup, but we think we'll be right later in the week.
What is the ceiling for this team? You've got a pretty good idea now. At the start of the year, you're obviously very buoyant about the chances, but now you've played most of the teams sitting in fourth. What's the ceiling for the current Port Adelaide side?
I think this competition's enormously close. That's the one thing that I think everybody is talking about. It runs very, very deep. We just talked about midfield depth. I think the competition's running really, really deep. And I think we've got some really good opportunities coming up for us in the back half of the year. Guys should be excited and confident with the way that they're playing and building some genuine belief. But as I said, I still think that we feel like we've got more in us and we can get better from here.
Is that what it's about in a year as close as it is? Opportunity, and you go, why not us?
Well, I think until you get to the point where it gets to the end of the season, as much as you like to forecast forward, we are jockeying for a position. And the position determines your chances. And until we get that position, then you can't be really accurate about what your chances are.
A lot of coaching talk at the moment as to what may or may not happen at other clubs at the end of the season. I know you're very settled and established here, but if something pops up, is that something you look at, or will you wait for people to come to you?
I get asked that question a lot, and I understand why people ask me that question, but I just find it just completely irrelevant. It is the furthest thing from my mind. We've got a really good opportunity in front of us as a football team. We've got a dogfight that with 6 weeks to go. We've got a really important challenge this week against Melbourne, and to shift your focus off anything else other than that, would be a distraction. So we've got a really important game against Melbourne. They're really, they've proven that they've been pretty strong across the whole year, and they've got some real big weapons. So anything other than focus on that is a distraction.
So you don't give it a second thought?
No, I don't. And that's without trying to dismiss your question, I find it really irrelevant at this time of the year.
I know you said you didn't want to talk about too many individual midfield stars, but Chad Wingard just continues to take it to another level. Has it surprised you at all?
Not with Chad. He's. I mean, the thing with Chad, I think we saw a couple of weeks ago. We've made a bit of a decision to probably get more 50-50 out of him, when it comes midfield and forward, and that relies on some other people stepping up. Lady and I have a constant fight about what the mix needs to be, whether that's midfield or forward. So sometimes he wins and sometimes I win, but he's valuable in both parts of the ground. And but what that does give us an opportunity to be able to probably put him in there in important times, but also just to get our rotations going. And that meant even Pep's got to spend a lot more time forward last week and had a few scoreboard opportunities on the weekend. So it's a growth of individuals, which is in Pep's case it's a little bit of that. But it's also how we make our group stronger, and some of that's with Chad forward and also on ball.
How much is the goal kicking still a work in progress?
It's always a work in progress. I don't think you ever sit there and say you've ever got it completely nailed. But we've just got to keep... I mean, we've been focusing on all year, to be honest, Rooch. It hasn't been something that we woke up 2 weeks ago decided let's go focus on goal kicking. It's been a constant thing that we've talked about. We've probably put a little bit more onus on it over the last couple of weeks. Sometimes that can go one of two ways. You put more onus on it, then it can go worse, or you can and it can get better. In this instance, it's managed to get a little bit better, but we can't take her off the ball.
Is Robbie Gray one of those examples? Well, he does the freakish ones, but the set shot ones are a bit off.
Yeah, I think he got it.
How do we explain that?
No, I don't think it's necessarily need to explain. I think he just gets a little bit frustrated that he hasn't sunk those goals. But I think if there's a guy that you're banking on big moments to get it done for you, I think it's Robbie.